Hey, what's good everyone? Baron here, and in today's video I will be going over a mask I swear I have posted before. I may have deleted it due to heavy misinformation in the post, but I'm back here again with this mask. Before I start in this video, I may get a few things wrong. I'm not very well versed anymore in this series of masks. So yeah, if I get anything wrong, please correct me. What I am going to be showing you in today's video is a first generation Scott Safety or Scott Aviation MCU-2P gas mask, or the MCU-2P Chemical Biological Protective Mask. The MCU-2P was standardized in 1983 from the experimental model XM30 or XM29 gas mask. The XM29 started development in 1974 and was a experimental gas mask. I've been probably put up a few pictures here. I have quite a lot of photographs of the XM29, so if you want any, please contact me on Discord at, I believe it's Militia Masks or something like that, and then on Instagram at Baron's Military Masks. If I was incorrect about the Discord thing, I would have been putting it up right here. But also the XM30 started development in 1980, which was basically what you see here. The XM30 is literally this, but you would take this hydration tube and make it gray, and take the inside inlet disc right here and make it green. I have an example of an XM30. I'd like to think older masks are best for that example. And I'd also like to thank Chemical Cucumber or CWS History 1944 for this example. These are amazing masks, and if you would like to see my XM30 in full length, please go check out my video on it earlier in my channel. It's one of my earlier videos. I really need to remake that, so be ready for that. But when the US finally decided to adopt, well, the US Navy and the US Air Force finally decided to adopt the XM30, this is the finalized product. A little bit of history before that. The people who were behind the XM29 and XM30 program wanted the US Army to adopt the XM30 and XM29 masks, but that the US Army dropped out way before any of this had happened with the Navy and the Air Force due to major financial issues with the mask. It was costing the Army too much, and they wanted to go a separate way. So they just went on with the M40. The M40 stemmed out of this mask. I get a little bit into that with my previous video that I'm making right now. It's uploading right now as I make this video. But yes, the M40 basically did stem out of the MCU. Now I actually have a piece of literature from Scott Aviation, and let's see what this is dated. 1983, October of 1983. So this was the year that the mask was standardized. You can see right here, you see an XM34 air crewman mask. The XM34 was generally just the facepiece of an XM30, but it took not modified, but it had a different outlet valve system and a experimental rounded hose that you can see as a finalized product on the M42 mask, the first generation that I'm actually posting right now, that M40 series. But it's blue. It's like blackish blue. Then on the back, you can see a XM30. You can see the gray exhale valves, or the hydration tube, and you can see the clear silicone facepiece, which would be semi-transparent, which you can see here. But of course, silicone yellows quite badly over time. That's basically the whole thing about the MCUs and the XM30s and stuff like that. They yellow badly. You see it is a brochure from Scott Aviation because Scott Aviation wanted to make the MCU into a military mask. This is basically a what-if brochure. Currently in production as Scott Aviation for the U.S. Air Force, the MCU-2P mask protects the faces, eyes, and lungs of military personnel from chemical, biological, and riot control agents. This mask was developed by Scott Aviation as the XM30 mask for the U.S. Army. That never happened. You can see over here, XM34, and over here, XM30. There we are. You can see the very early XM30s, or the very late XM30s, have the three-pronged Scott outsert. And actually, you can see right here, these masks, the very early Scott ones, the final production models have 3-pronged outserts with these little sticker things on the top of them. These are Scott Aviation very early model outserts. The late Scott Aviation model outserts only have 2. But of course these are much larger and go over this area right here. 1488. 1484, I almost said 1488. Sorry. This is a tinted outsert, and that's a clear outsert. I do actually have a I believe it's a 1988, it's around that era, Scott Aviation not XM30, MCU-2P. It's a very late MCU-2P. I also have a sealed one. Sorry, let me get it over here. It's a sealed MCU-2P. It's dated 1988. It's a size small, much like the one you see behind this, and it is, of course, completely sealed. This came off of eBay. Sorry. You might have seen another one of those on Reddit, the r/gas masks Reddit, because I bought from the same seller. Now, to go on a little tangent, the XM30 wanted to replace the M17 full protective mask. The XM30 platform was generally designed as a replace all for every mask in the United States military scene. They wanted to replace the Navy's Mark V. They wanted to replace the Air Force's... Hold on. I'm thinking. M17? A2? I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm having a major brain fart right now. But they wanted to replace the infantry's, of course, M17A2, because that was around at the time. Well, M17A1, because the XM30 started in 1980 and the M17A2 was developed in 1983. So the US military went the M17 route instead of course, adopting the XM30. And then the United States Navy and the United States Air Force picked up the contract, and Scott Aviation began producing these early semi-transparent silicone MCUs that do not actually use the same facepiece as the same base like mold as the XM30 because they share a lot of differences. I'll show you here in a little bit. But I'm not actually entirely sure when MSA picked up the contract, because MSA and Scott Aviation manufactured MCUs during this time, and the MCU-2 AP later in the very, very late 80s, which added an M101 AIC internal microphone assembly, which you'll see in my, of course, previous video on the MCU-2 AP, which I made quite some time ago. But these are the standard models, the MCU-2P. You can see the chemical biological bag is for the MCU-2P and MCU-2AP specifically. There are 2 models. You have the MCU-2P and the MCU-2AP model, and then, I'm not going to pause it. Sorry. Bag waterproof chemical biological mask M1. Don't know why I didn't just pause it. But to my surprise, semi-transparent MSA MCUs actually do exist. That was confusing to me because I didn't know that MSA created MCUs when the semi-transparent silicone was still in development. It would be great to get my hands on one of those, but the only people I actually know of owning examples are a few people in the GMCC on Facebook and Pedro Ortiz. I'm not sure if he still owns it. It's very likely that he does. That would be one thing that I would very like to get to complete my MCU collection. I'm very close to completing that. I just need an XM29. But of course, later down the line, Scott Aviation everybody kind of ditched the semi-transparent silicone, which you can actually see your finger through if you put it behind it. You can see that is carried over with the semi-transparent XM29 and XM30. The only XM30s that didn't actually have the semi-transparent silicone were the green ones, or no, the green ones. They were green. No, those were XM34s. I just talked about it in my video I'm uploading now. My brain's not really working that well right now. But later down the line, when the M50 was introduced around 2007, when it was standardized, but when it first went to full production, these were ditched. They ditched these for the M50. The M50 is basically what the XM30 wanted to be, as a replace all for every single mask in the United States military. The M50 is used by every branch of the military now. I'm not sure if anybody still uses stocks of these. I hope they won't. Hope they do not, because the earliest one, or the latest ones you can find are very, very, very early 2000s, to my knowledge. But surprisingly, a certain branch in the Army actually, or a certain branch in the Air Force, the Navy, still use the Navy diaphragm Mark V's, which were kind of ditched in 1984. Fully in 1984. There's 1984 examples, because this was actually meant to replace the Navy diaphragm Mark V mask, and they were fully replaced in 1984 because in the 90s, because stocks of the MCUs weren't actually fully ready yet, so they kept using the Navy diaphragm Mark V's, and then sometime in the early 2000s they still used them, and I believe Fort Leonard Wood or something like that, Missouri maybe, said, hey, you gotta stop using these are defunct and they need to be replaced now. So yeah, the Army's weird. Navy, Air Force, I don't know, but I kind of went on a tangent. This is, of course, a Scott Aviation model of the MCU. The way to tell that a MCU is a Scott Aviation model and not an MSA model is these little... Sorry, that's going to fall. Let me move that. It has an M40 in it. They have these two little dots on the buckle tabs right here. Every single Scott Aviation MCU mask has these two little dots right here. So go check your MCU, or go check one on eBay. If it has these two little dots, if they don't actually show these little, the actual, like, stamps over here, then you need to check these two little buckles right here for two little dots. You can see why the two little dots on the M40s exist. All right here is because those are Scott products. Scott Aviation produced or developed the M40. The M40 you see now is a Scott Aviation product. That is their contract. So the very early ones you'll see for the MCUs have these two little dots. That's why. And if you don't see these two little dots, you can see this. This is much different than an MSA MCU, because these aren't turned to face this way. And you wouldn't see MCU-2P, CB mask, you wouldn't see this NSN number, and you wouldn't see small over here. You would just see this little date roundel. That's all you would see. This one is actually dated. It's very hard to see because it's clear silicone. Second week of November 1984 by Scott Aviation. Lot 7089. Size small. NSN number 4240-01-175-3443. That's not going to be of use, so don't really care about me saying that. The outlet valve is actually very easy to read. 5th week of December 1984 by Scott Aviation, lot 7090. I should have probably read that. Oh, it's different. That's unfortunate. But of course, the other number on the side is 424002. Here's the second membrane. Here's the standard voice emitter that I can actually put a VPU unit on, voice protection unit. Here's the 40mm Stanag or NATO threading pitch. And of course you can see it's very different than the M40. The M1 hydration system goes to the right instead of the left. Let me get this out. It's kind of annoying on the MCU platform. There we are. Standard M1 hydration system, or E49. Standardized, or first issued on the M17A1 in 1966. Get in there. Sorry. The M1 hydration tubes are really annoying. Now, it's actually not known to my knowledge what these little numbers on the tops are meant to be. They're seen in the XM30s as well, but I don't really know what they are. If you do know, please tell me. And now to the back, you can see the MCU harness. This is a harness for a later generation MCU-2P. And if you go check out my XM30 video, you can actually see that this head harness is literally a C8R1 head harness from an M17 field protective mask, but they just added this little donning loop right here, so when you put the mask on, you can put your finger through this and push it down. This is literally a C8R1 head harness, but actually The one in my XM30 video is an experimental model that is modified from a CE-1 head harness with this little downing loop attached or sewn in. That's what these came from. These are CE-1 head harnesses, but with downing loops attached. That's literally all they are. I'm not sure why this one's green. It could be something, the same thing that happened with the early 69, 70 M17A1s, where they had a green head pad, but I could be wrong. This is a very, very, very late head harness, and I got it because no one didn't have one for this MCU. See, I cleaned up the mask very well. You really can't clean up discoloration. It's not that easy. The nose scope actually came out when I was cleaning it, but it was easy to go back in. This actually comes off. I'm not going to take it off because it's horrible to get back on, but it actually does come off. Now let's actually get into the mask. Very easy to come off. The straps are just kind of stiff because they're new. Newer than most, I should say, because they're probably from the 90s. Come on. So, just a heads up, if you're looking to find a 1983 MCU, don't waste your time, they don't exist. The US didn't make masks the year they standardized them. That's why you'll never find a 1959 M17. They don't exist. You'll never find a 1986 M40. They don't exist. And you'll never find a 1983 MCU. They don't exist. This is really hurting my fingers. And it's kind of weird. The US Army standardized the M50 in 2007. But you still find 2007 M7 or M50s. It's kind of weird. I'm not really sure why. Maybe I'm wrong and that's not when they standardized them. I don't know. Here's the interior. You can see it's still very discolored. You could still see it through it a little bit. You can see my fingers through there. You can see Scott. Also keep an eye out if you don't see the Scott logo. Don't worry, because sometimes Scott is abbreviated with SAM, SAM, or SAO. That's why you need to keep an eye out for M40s that say SAO or SAM, because those are Scott. Scott is either SCOTT for Scott, SAM for Scott. I don't know why SAM, but you also see SAO. Again, I don't know why SAO or SAM. But you also want to look out for these early filters, the PCT 1986 C2 canisters. You also really want to look out for the 1984 canisters. Those are for XM40s and US 10s. Finally, we need to go take a look at the carrier. Not going to really touch base much on this. It's just a very early MCU carrier. I used to believe that these were for the Scott MCUs, but they're not. They're just for very early MCUs. They all have this little stamping on the back. Carrier Chemical Biological Field Mask MCU-2P. I believe my voice is going away. I'm not sure why that's happening, but yeah. So it appears I need to cut this video short. I apologize. It's not short. It's 18 minutes long. Holy shit. But yeah, standard MCU carrier. That's it. I will hopefully see you guys in the next video when I have my voice again. Peace.